wall and welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida and another dip into the archive. This episode is for the birds, and I mean that literally. Followers of the channel likely know I've done videos on flamingos, spoonbills, ibis, and parrots, and today I'm taking a look at more birds. I recently revisited one of my favorite places in Central Florida, the Audubon Center for Birds of Prey, which focuses on the rescue, medical treatment, rehabilitation, and release of Florida's raptors. It's a non-profit organization that's associated with the National Audubon Society. Let's cover a couple terms before we go any further. Both birds of prey and raptors mean the same thing and can be used interchangeably. They both refer to a grouping of birds that are related because of their diet and hunting styles. Raptor comes from a Latin word that means to take by force. There are a number of birds known as raptors, and while ornithologists, bird scientists, use the term, it isn't an official classification, such as galliforms, chickens, pelicanforms, pelicans, or columbiiforms, pigeons and doves. In North America, there's several different families of birds that are considered to be raptors. There's about 25 species that are native to Florida, of which 16 are considered to live in the state year-round. I won't go into detail about the birds, but here you can see 20 of them that I've been lucky enough to have photographed in the wild around the state. There's a group of owls, a pair of vultures, a number of hawks and falcons, as well as an eagle, osprey, and caracara. As you probably know, raptors are carnivorous and eat mammals, reptiles, fish, amphibians, mollusks, and even other birds. They have excellent eyesight, generally much better than you or I, often have excellent hearing as well, and have claws or talons on their feet with which they grab prey. They are among the most proficient hunters in the animal kingdom, which shouldn't be surprising since they're descended from dinosaurs. Each one even seems to still have a bit of T-Rex or Velociraptor in them. In fact, they are quite similar to velociraptors, especially considering the ones portrayed in Jurassic Park are actually based on the dinosaur Deinonychus, but the writer, Michael Crichton, felt that Velociraptor was a more dramatic name, partly because people already knew what a raptor was. By the way, velociraptors were about the size of wild turkeys, so only a little larger than actual bald eagles. Florida is not only home to a number of different raptors, it's well known as one of the best places in the U.S. to look for birds in the wild. Thousands of tourists flock to Florida every year with bird watching on their list of things to do. Lots of people think that Florida is mostly all developed, but once you begin exploring the state, people discover there's actually a lot of rural and natural land. I labeled this map of nighttime Florida with all the big cities to give you an idea of the open spaces, but then I realized that labeling the open areas would be better. If you want to see birds in the wild, these are the places you need to visit. There's the obvious ones like the 3 national forests and the Everglades, but also check out the Green Swamp, Kissimmee Prairie, and the Big Bend region. The Big Bend is that part of the Gulf Coast that curves to connect the Panhandle with the rest of the state. That area is remarkably undeveloped, with miles of coastline that lacks any real beaches. It's an incredible area, quite unlike the rest of Florida's coast. If you've ever thought, I'm so tired of white sandy beaches, the Big Bend area is for you. But let's move on. Located in Maitland, the Audubon Center for Birds of Prey has taken care of thousands of raptors in 44 years of operation. They were nice enough to offer me a tour of the facilities on the shore of Lake Sabella. In a little over 1.5 acres, the center contains a trauma clinic, a 100-year-old home that's been converted to offices, and a large number of aviaries or mews, a term to refer to the housing of birds of prey, especially in connection with falconry. Surrounded by aviaries containing a number of raptors, I spoke with the director, Katie Gill Warner, about the center's history and its activities. She also explained the importance of raptors within our ecosystem and how they're protected by state and federal laws.
Hi, I'm Katie Warner, Director here at Audubon Center for Birds of Prey. And we are located in Maitland, Florida, just outside Orlando, right next to the town of Eatonville, the oldest African incorporated township in the nation. So our facility started in 1979, but before that, the Florida Audubon Society actually has a great history of conservation in Florida. In March of 1900, the very first Florida Audubon Society meeting was held in Maitland, just about 10 minutes from here, in the home of Clara Domrick. And she had friends, so they would come down here in the north, and she got a group together to really start a movement to save Florida's wading birds. At that time, hundreds of thousands of birds in South Florida and Central Florida were being killed to use their feathers for women's hats. So that was the beginning of the Florida Audubon Society, and today we still take that message forward with protecting birds in the important places that they need. So at our location, we started in 1979, and we had a staff member named Doris Mager, and she ran the gift shop out of the house. And so she was doing rehab out of her home and was also very dedicated to saving bald eagles. So she really wanted to raise awareness and some funds to save bald eagles and start a raptor facility in Central Florida. So she got permission from the Florida Audubon Society board at that time and the Fish and Game Commission to sit in an inactive bald eagle's nest and raise funds to start the Center for Birds of Prey. So that first year we were open, I think we treated 12 birds, if I have my math. I'd have to fact check that. And today we treat over 700. Last year we toppled 800 birds that came through our facility. We specialize in the care of bald eagles. We treated 100 last year. So that includes adults, juveniles, and even baby bald eaglets that come through our facility for care. They get to us from a variety of reasons, primarily falls from nests. Many injuries are unknown. We see vehicle strikes, electrocutions, poisons, and sometimes some of our patients still come in with gunshot wounds. So of that, we're able to release about 40% back into the wild. Since 1979, we've released over 750 bald eagles back into the skies.
The center's trauma clinic can do most tests and many treatments for the birds that are brought to the facility, but they also partner with a local vet who handles the major procedures in their offices. These run the gamut of any imaginable situation, including broken bones, eye or beak injuries, poisonings, diseases, and even gunshot wounds. There are other facilities in the state that perform the same procedures, and I've been fortunate enough to witness several operations on birds at the clinic at Busch Gardens in Tampa. Busch Gardens is a large zoo, and it provides medical care to all of its animals as well as any that are brought in for emergency treatment, much like those at the Audubon Center. These are photos of raptors who were brought in for a variety of things, including basic exams and setting a leg with a metal brace. I also have photos of a doctor doing a liver biopsy on a tiny lorikeet. Imagine how delicate that work had to be. Busch Gardens offers a rare public glimpse of actual operations in its clinic. The television show Wildlife Docs was filmed at Busch Gardens and featured the medical treatment of the zoo's animals. The staff work on animals as small as lorikeets up to elephants, though they often go to the animal enclosures as it's often easier and safer for both doctors and patients. Large animal veterinarians are just about the only doctors who still make house calls. As Katie mentioned, one of Audubon Florida's staff members in the 1960s was Doris Mager. One day in '63, a neighbor of the office came into the gift shop with a red-tailed hawk with a foot infection. Since there wasn't a wild bird rehabilitation facility at that time, Mager brought the hawk home to try and treat it. After about a month of regular Epsom salt foot baths, the hawk was back to health and ready to be released. Raptor rehab was like that 60 years ago. Eventually, Audubon became known as a place to bring injured birds, especially raptors. Mager learned on the job and regularly asked for guidance from a raptor rehabilitation site on the Gulf Coast. Convalescing birds were kept at her house, while those that the Audubon decided couldn't be safely released would sometimes visit the store. At one point, Mager's backyard was even home to 7 bald eagles, among other birds, and Audubon, Florida became keenly aware of the need for a dedicated raptor rehabilitation facility and education center. But there wasn't any money available for such a facility and its operation. At the same time, the number of bald eagles in the U.S. was near extinction levels. They had been placed on the endangered species list, and the estimated population in Florida was less than 100 nesting pairs in the 1970s. Today, it's almost unthinkable that Americans nearly allowed their national symbol to disappear. I suppose the first thing to know about bald eagles is that they aren't bald. The name comes from an archaic definition of the word bald, which meant white-headed. One other use of this meaning is the word piebald, which generally refers to horses that are black and white. The pie part of the word is a shortening of the word magpie, a Eurasian relative of the crow that's black and white. As beautiful as bald eagles are, they have been a much maligned and abused animal over the past 100 years. Old wives' tales insist that they grabbed young lambs and even unattended little children. As false as that is, eagles are also known to feed on carrion and to steal food from other animals. These actions are thought to be inappropriate, though biologists consider them as behaviors to show that bald eagles are opportunistic, as are many other predators. Because of these negative opinions, thousands of bald eagles have been shot and killed for little reason. Eagle populations decline quickly with hunting, as well as the effects of pesticides, poisons, collision with motor vehicles, and power line electrocution. Between the need of a rehab center in the Orlando area and the decline of bald eagles, Mager, who is now a vice president at Florida Audubon Society, overseeing raptor research and rehabilitation, decided some dramatic action was needed. In 1979, she devised a plan to hold a sit-in, but instead of doing it in a government office, Mager hatched the idea of doing it in a bald eagle nest. This sounds like a crazy idea. How could a human fit in a bird nest? Bald eagles only weigh about 10 pounds or 4.5 kilograms, but guess what? Bald eagles build the largest tree nests in the world. Typical nests can be 13 feet or 4 meters deep, 8 feet or 2.5 meters in diameter, and weigh up to 2,300 pounds or over 1,000 kilograms. The largest nest ever measured was located near St. Petersburg in the early 60s and was 20 feet or 6 meters deep and weighed nearly 5,600 pounds or 2,500 kilograms. Mager was very familiar with eagle nest size, and when she hatched her plan, she had in mind an abandoned nest located in Oviedo. With a start date of Flag Day 1979, she had secured permission from both Audubon, Florida and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who gave her the green light, saying that they didn't condone it, but they wouldn't stop her. Standing at the base of the scrub pine tree with the nest 50 feet or 15 meters above the ground, Mager became acutely aware of the enormity of her plan. With one hand hesitantly on a climbing ladder, there was one big additional factor. Mid-June is summer in Central Florida, which meant that there was going to be intense afternoon thunderstorms, and one was brewing up as she was ready to launch her sit-in. The tree had been equipped with lightning rods, but there wasn't any way to secure the tree from the blustery winds or deluge of rain. Mager had never scaled a tree before, much less in a storm. So she strapped on a safety harness and thanked her lucky stars that she had thought to take a seasickness pill. Mager was known to get airsick and seasick, so she figured nest sick was inevitable. For the next 6 days, she held court in a most unusual and beautiful space, answering the questions of reporters as well as the general public who would drive out to see the newly crowned Eagle Lady. She slept on a patio lounge cushion, used a rigged-up pulley system for food and drink, and a Maxwell House coffee can repurposed as a chamber pot. She wrote thank you notes for the donations that came in, listened to live music that was provided by supporters at the base of her new home, and got a treat from an ice cream man every day. The Eagle Lady told reporters, "I always wanted to sleep overnight in a nest." She was interested in knowing the eagle's residents firsthand, seeing what they saw, experiencing the motion of the tree, and feeling the touch of the sun and the sound of rain. As she said, to wake up in the morning like an eagle, to look over the mist on the ground, and then to look over Lake Harney and see the sun come up in the mist rise. How beautiful it was. News and photos of Mager ran on television and in newspapers across the country. Life magazine printed a full-page color photograph of her waving from topside. Due to the nationwide attention, Florida Audubon met its fundraising goals, built the new Rehab and Education Center, and opened it that year.
Open to the public, we host groups you can come and visit on your own and do a self-guided tour. We also offer special programs throughout the year, including education programs and tours for school-age kids. We also offer programs for adults. And then we have special events throughout the year focused on owls, opening up the doors to invite the community in. Our biggest spring event is called Baby Owl Shower. We have that each May, the Saturday before Mother's Day. And we really celebrate baby season at the center. So that's when we need to raise funds because we use the most resources taking care of babies. In May alone, we received about 20% of our annual patient load. So that could be over 100 baby birds that come through our facility in May. So it's quite a chaotic time, and we just invite the public in to learn a little bit about Audubon, about conservation, and the work we do here.
Cool.
Correct. So when you come and visit, if you're walking around, you'll see all Florida native raptors. We have 30 permanent birds here, and that represents about 18 different species. They are non-releasable, so they've all been injured in one way or another, and they're not able to be returned to the wild. Any of the birds that we have in our care that are able to be released are kept behind the scenes in other areas away from public view. So part of that collection, we have an ambassador team that is trained for education. So we'll take birds out and about into the community, into the classroom. That includes a bald eagle, great horned owl, red-shouldered hawk. So students and adults can get the experience of seeing these raptors up close and personal. When a bird arrives at our facility, we get them from a variety of reasons, many from concerned citizens that maybe saw a baby fall out of a nest or it got hit by a car and they were able to get him to our facility. We do have a small rescue team. We do get some birds from Fish and Game Commission, animal control, so they come to us for a variety of reasons, and many other rehabbers will send birds of prey to us, and then we have a network that if you have an injured mammal or something else, they would take care of it. So we don't have any room here to keep non-releasables, but we do place birds all over the country to be used for education. This includes other zoos, parks, Audubon centers that are on static view like the aviaries, or they can be used in education programs.
I showed some photos from the care center at Busch Gardens earlier, and I wanted to show you some of the raptors you can see at Florida's zoos and rescue centers. To expand on Katie's point, these birds are all rescues in one way or another. The term forever home is often used for zoos who keep raptors as part of their collection, and they're often used for education. One of the nice advantages that raptors have is that they're pretty easy to transport, and they can learn to be calm and comfortable even in a classroom with a bunch of chaotic kids. By the way, raptors are hardly the only animals that end up in zoos under similar circumstances. The exotic pet trade in the U.S. makes it easy for people to buy animals without knowing how to take care of them. Many of these animals are difficult to care for unless you're an expert, and many live for a long time. Examples include various larger parrot species, including macaws and cockatoos. These highly intelligent birds can live for more than 50 years. Then there's larger reptiles, such as monitor and iguana lizards, as well as the larger constrictor snakes. They also have fairly long lives. Zoos end up taking in these unwanted and even abused animals, and while they give them a good home, it's a shame they had to get there through the ignorance of people.
For this many birds of prey species, yes, there are other Audubon centers that have clinical programs. Sharon Audubon does, but they do songbirds and raptors. And so we are certainly a specialty on the east side of the Mississippi River. And so the most important thing, of course, is that we're a nonprofit 501c3 in the Central Florida area, and we have to raise all of our funds for operations at the center. So we are reliant and thankful for donors, visitors, and others who invest in our work and supporting the work of us protecting birds in the places that they need.
One of your programs is Adopt a Bird, right?
Yes, you can adopt a bird. So if there's a favorite bird actually that you know about here, you can adopt it for you or give it as a gift, and that funds go to the support and care of that bird here. Or you can adopt a species. You can say, I want to adopt eagles, and you can support that species here at the center.
And the rumor is that you can take home one of your birds for a weekend, right?
Not true, but you can always come here and visit. Our main programs at the Center for Birds of Prey are obviously our bird care program, so that includes our clinical work and our rehabilitation programs. We also have environmental education, and then we have Audubon Eagle Watch. That is a community science research program that's based out of here, where we have volunteers all throughout Florida monitoring bald eagles' nest. So nesting season in Florida is from May to October through May. And if you're an eagle watcher, you're assigned a nest, you're given some training, and we're really trying to collect data on productivity. So our eagles are doing great in Florida, but we want to be able to keep them as a success story. And so we do a lot of education and advocacy work around these important areas where eagles nest. So eagle watchers enter their data into a database, and they support the habitat protections of the nesting areas for bald eagles. So birds of prey are our top predators. They are excellent indicators of a healthy environment. So it goes up the food chain. If there's something that is toxic maybe in a waterway and all the fish are dying off, birds would be the first thing that you could physically probably see because they're more visual, and so they're indicators of a healthy environment. And it's just important, they help keep the prey base down. And so things that you might not want around your house, like roaches or rats or things like that, they're an excellent, a natural pest control for your area.
And the vultures clean up the rest.
And the vultures clean up the rest.
Yeah.
All birds of prey are protected, and they're covered under the Migratory Bird and Treaty Act. We also have additional protections for our bald eagles. That comes from the Bald and Gold Eagle Act. So it's illegal for you to harass, have parts, destroy nests, and all of that is wrapped up in like protecting our bird populations. A lot of what Audubon also does is some of our migratory species, because it's called the Migratory Bird and Treaty Act, many migrants come through Florida. So along the Atlantic Flyway, eagles migrate up and down the Atlantic Flyways, peregrines migrate, osprey as well, and Audubon's working to protect the important stopover areas to make sure that they have a safe place to stop over, refuel, and keep going.
Florida's population of bald eagles grew from less than 100 nesting pairs in the 1970s to 600 by 1992. As of 2020, that number is thought to be over 1,500 nesting pairs. It's hard to estimate how many in total there are, since so many migrate to other states. Today it's estimated there's nearly 350,000 individual bald eagles in the entire U.S., with Florida having the largest number outside of Alaska. It's been taken off the endangered species list, but it's still protected by federal and state laws, as are all other American raptors. Audubon Center for Birds of Prey has played a significant role in the saving of the bald eagle, as well as in the lives of thousands of raptors in the 44 years it's operated in Maitland. I encourage you to visit the center. It's the best way to see raptors up close, and the staff are happy to answer your questions. The center is easy to find, and it's in a nice neighborhood and on one of the Orlando area's beautiful lakes. Thanks for watching another of my videos. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to learn more about Florida's tourism history. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.